Alright, also official preview season started today, and I wasn't online whenever they previewed them all on the Wizards official Twitter page, so I decided to just dodge the internet as much as I could today and try not to look at previews, which was so difficult, so I could go over them with y'all first today. So y'all gonna get my actual reaction to what these new cards are, and we can talk about them, so let's get to it. Alright, first up we have Mirror Convert. It's a 2 colorless, 2/1, Phyrexian Mirror, not a surprise. Has Toxic, which is now if it deals damage to the opponent, also gets a poison counter. And then you can tap it, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color. This is actually kind of a cool card, honestly, at first blush. It's, one, an uncommon, so pretty easy to get your hands on. It can be played in like artisan format stuff, which is pretty important because you're going to play commons and uncommons, so it fits there. It can go into any deck that wants to ramp because you can pay life for it. So if you're playing a deck that already gains life, this is just another mana producer, which is pretty cool. And it's a 2/1 creature, so if you are wanting to play aggressive artifacts, it's actually a thing. So I kind of dig this card all around. I'm sure there's a few ways to use it, even ignoring the Toxic line on it, though you can use that in decks trying to deal poison counters. But yeah, just as a card on its own, pretty solid. Alright, we have Ossification, colorless and a white. For an aura, enchant land you control. When Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Ossification leaves the battlefield. This kind of reminds me of, what was it, Chained to the Rocks, I think, out of the last Theros block, or maybe the one before that. But basically, you enchant a land, it holds a creature there, and then, you know, whenever it's removed, the creature comes back. This is kind of very much the same. This is actually a pretty good card, to be honest. Now, obviously, in a world of like Invoke Despairs and all that stuff, it may not be great. But this is a really good card if you're a limited player. I definitely would look for these in Sealed and Draft. But yeah, the card's actually okay. I could see it getting some constructed play potentially. All right, Shieldred's Edict. Colorless and a black. Instant, choose one. Each opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Each opponent sacrifices a creature token. Each opponent sacrifices a planeswalker. Generally, I would say this card is okay. However, it has a very important distinction on this one, and it's an instant. Usually when you get cards like this, they're sorceries, and that limits them from being put on things that are repeatable effects and things like that, or being used out of the graveyard at instant speed. This is actually really strong, and the fact that it can hit tokens, non-tokens, or planeswalkers, very flexible. So this card, while looking kind of passive, might actually have an impact on some of the other formats that aren't standard, realistically. Like, this is one I would keep my eye on. It's very subtle, but could be very important in the right environments. All right, Annex Sentry, 2 colorless and a white for a Phyrexian Cleric. Also has Toxic. It's a 1/4, and when this card enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until this card leaves the battlefield. Wow. Alright, so it's a cleric, goes into a few decks. It's a 1/4, which is not bad. Can exile anything. Like, here's the thing about this card, actually. I don't think it's necessarily great. However, if there's decks where you are already okay playing something like the werewolf that exile stuff, right? If you're okay playing that, then this is actually also reasonable. And even more so if you're playing it in a deck with Toxic, trying to do poison, because you only need 1 or 2 creatures each turn to sneak through to get the poison up to 10. So this could have a home. I don't know. We still have better things to just exile stuff, but you get to exile something on a body, and we were already doing it with Brutal Cathar, so why not? Alright, Experimental Augury, a colorless and a blue, instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Proliferate. We get some version of this all the time. This is filter your top cards, take the best thing, has a bonus effect. This time it's Proliferate. I just saw this one and think it should be mentioned. Bladehold War-whip. It's a colorless red-white artifact equipment. For Meriden, when this equipment enters the battlefield, you create a 2/2 red rebel creature token. Rebel, interesting choice, and you attach this to it. Equipment abilities you control or you activate of other equipment costs 1 less to activate. So this doesn't affect itself, but it makes other equip costs less. Equipped creature has double strike. The equip on this is high, though. It's 3 colorless, red, white. The reason this is cool is because it means we're going to be doing something similar to how we did the germ tokens and the old Phyrexian Mirrodin stuff. So that's actually pretty cool. Just now it's for Mirrodin, I guess, is what we're calling that. I don't know. It's the first card I've seen that has that. But it's kind of interesting. It could make equipment more playable, honestly. And that alone is a benefit, because right now the equipment that have existed have not been really playable at all. Glissa Sunslayer, colorless, black, green, 3/3. Cool to see Glissa back, by the way. Legendary creature, Phyrexian zombie elf. So it goes in zombies and elves, so that's pretty cool. And I guess there's enough Phyrexians now, you could do that. This card has First Strike. It has Death Touch, which is a great combo, by the way. First Strike and Death Touch is hard to kill. Whenever Glissa deals combat damage to a player, you choose one. You draw a card and you lose a life. You destroy target enchantment. Remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. This is pretty cool, because like your opponent, unless they're chump blocking with like 1/1s or something, probably aren't going to want to block this very often. But at the same time, if they let it connect, you're either going to get cards, destroy an enchantment, or remove counters from things. And there are quite a few cards, even now, that put +1/+1s on stuff and things like that. So that could be pretty important. It does say up to 3 counters from target permanent. So you can't move 3 different counters, but whatever. That's still a lot of value. For 3 mana, you get a 3/3 First Strike, Death Touch, and actual useful abilities. This card's actually pretty good. Now, I don't know what decks it goes in. If I'm already playing black and green, then sure, I'll play this card because it's solid. But I don't know if it's something that just goes into a lot of builds. But if I'm playing something aggressive in those colors, rest assured I'll probably be playing this. Alright, we covered a lot of Planeswalkers in the previous video, and maybe I'll link it here to the pre-previews. But I don't think Jace was on that list. So, Jace the Perfected Mind. 2 colorless, a blue and Phyrexian blue. Legendary Planeswalker Jace, and it has +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0, which is good because that'll stop a lot of creatures. Target player -2, by the way. Target player mills 3 cards. Then, if the graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you draw 3 cards. Otherwise, you draw a card. So you mill 3, draw a card. If they have 20 or more, you get to draw 3 cards. And then -X, target player mills 3 times X. Okay, so here's the thing. Like, you can pay it play it for full price, which is 4. You'd have 5 loyalty. You could -3, so that would be 3 times X, so that's 9. So you put 9 cards in the graveyard. Then even then you wouldn't be able to -2, because then you would just kill Jace. So you'd only be able to do it for like 2, and then minus. And even then, you've only put 8, 9, 10, 11, not even that many. You've only put 9 cards in the graveyard. So, Now, if you're already playing a mill deck, then this is just a sweet bonus on top, right? This is guaranteed mill cards every turn, and you get to draw cards. So, if you already have a mill strategy, this is going to be great. Otherwise, I don't know if this is like a Planeswalker just gets thrown into random decks. This is very well seated hard into the mill strategy. Mondrak, Glory Dominus. 2 colorless, white, for a 4/4 Phyrexian Horror, legendary creature. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. You can pay 1 or 2, 1 and 2 white Phyrexian mana, sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures, put an indestructible counter on this card. Now, first thing, wait. Does that artwork have like 5 mouths? I mean, I know it's Phyrexian and all, but that's kind of, yeah, that's crazy looking. Like, I don't even know where the face I think the face is at the top, like the brains. I don't know. That's a weird thing. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The card itself, it's a 4 mana 4/4. It doubles all your tokens. You can sacrifice other tokens. Realistically, you can just pay 4 life and 1 mana. To put an indestructible counter on it, which is pretty sweet. I think that's really powerful. I think right now people already try to play the small Kaya in tokens decks, and they like that ability. So just having this on something permanent is really strong. Can let you get easier triggers towards something like a rabble rousing. And to be honest, right now, other than Jetmir, I don't believe those decks really have anything solid in the 4 mana slot, unless you're playing like, I don't know, Wandering Emperor or something. So this is actually pretty cool. I think this could actually very well go into several tokens lists. And y'all know we got several tokens lists on this channel. And I'll probably be making a lot more with this card in it. So I don't think this card is a stud by any means. But I think if you have a token strategy, even a middling token strategy, you know, if you had 8 or 9 cards that were making tokens, this is still a 4/4 for 4 and can supplement another ability. All right, we have Karumonix. I think that's how you say that. Karumonix. Yeah, Karumonix, the Rat King. Which already makes me think, before I even read what this ability does, that it's a Rat King and people are going to want it. Because rats are a thing that people play and collect in Magic. Colorless, black, 3/3, Phyrexian Rat. Toxic 1, of course. Other rats you control have Toxic 1. Why not? And when Karumonix enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal any number of rat cards among them and put the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Yeah, this is just solid. If you're playing a rat deck, boom, awesome. I guess if you're playing a toxic deck and at least one of the other creatures is a rat, then maybe it's useful. But yeah, it's going to fit into a couple of builds. Nothing exciting. I don't think expect it to be expensive, but it is efficient and it's a 3/3 body. Green Sun's Twilight. X and a green. Reveal the top X plus 1. Okay, reveal the top X plus 1 cards of your library. Choose a creature card and or a land card from among them. So you can get 2 cards out of this. Put those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is 5 or more, instead put the chosen cards onto the battlefield or into your hand and the rest of the library. This card's just cool. This card's neat. I don't see any problems with this card. Like the fact that you can play it at any level just to look at the top cards and get a land and or a creature. If your deck's built right, it's going to be hard to miss. The interesting thing, though, is that you can put that into play if you pay at least 5, right? So if you're paying 6 or more, you can, 5 let you look at 6 cards because it's X plus 1. But if you're paying 6 total mana or more, you can actually just put the things directly into play. So this is cool. Man, this card might be better than it looks on first blush, honestly. Because I'm already thinking about a bunch of different things I can do with this. It is a sorcery, though, so you would basically be tapping out on your turn to do the thing. But this also seems very powerful for Commander, honestly. Like, this is the type of card that I could see being an $8, $10, even $20 Commander card down the road because it's so good just putting stuff directly into play. And it's not hard to get 6 mana in a lot of Commander games. I don't really think this card's good, but I just saw it and laughed because I'll probably die to it at some point. Paladin of Predation, 5, green for a 6/7. It has Toxic 6, meaning if it connects, you get 6 poison counters. Paladin of Predation can't be blocked except by creatures with power 2 or less. So, you know, this is cool. Can't be blocked by creatures with power 2. So it can't be chump block. You have to fight it with something big. But yeah, I don't think this card's that good. But yeah, it's going to win some draft or sealed games, I'm sure. Encroaching Mycosynth. It is 3 colors and a blue. It's an artifact. Non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. The same is true for permanent spells you control and non-land permanent cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. This is probably just going to end up being something busted like Mycosynth Lattice, where you just turn a bunch of stuff into artifacts and then you try to either lock your opponent out from not being able to play artifacts, or you have something that destroys artifacts, or things that work by having artifacts in play and getting a bonus. Like, any of that stuff is all going to trigger off this. All right, Bloated Contaminator. 2 colorless and a green for Phyrexian Beast. It's a 4/4. Okay, so already a 3 mana 4/4 means there's probably a downside, with only 1 of the mana being green and 2 being colorless. So it's Trample. That's not bad. Toxic 1. All right. But it does trample, so that means you'll get the toxic triggers more often, I guess. Whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. There's no downside to this card. Like, it's easy to cast with only 1 colored mana and the mana cost. It's a 3 mana 4/4, which is already good, and it comes with trample, which is good. It gets toxic, so whenever you do trample, you're going to put a poison counter on somebody. And on top of that, if it does connect, you get to proliferate, which means you get to up one counter of all types that you control. So honestly, this is the type of card that if you wanted to play it in the green or gruel like modified decks that are trying to take advantage of some of the red cards, trying to play Kadama the West Tree, I think it is, the 3/3, like, this is pretty damn good, honestly. Like, yeah, like, this card has to be played. Like, even if I'm just playing an aggro green deck, why would I not play this card? Like, even if I don't care about Proliferate, and I don't care about the Toxic bonus, it's still a 3-mana 4/4 with Trample. Like, this card's really good. Alright, cool. This just snuck in there. Awesome. By the way, I'm just going down the list, y'all. I have no idea how many cards this is. If this ends up being too long, I'm going to split this into 2 videos, but I'm going to try to speed things up here. So we have Vindictive Flame Stoker. Y'all let me know, by the way, do you like long videos where I go on and on about cards, or do you want short, concise things on each card? Or do you want me to dive deeper? I don't know. Like, y'all tell me. Vindictive Flame Stoker, 1 red, 1/2, Phyrexian Wizard. When you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on this card. Pay 7 mana, so 6 colors and a red. Sacrifice this card, discard your hand, then draw 4 cards. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each oil counter on it. Okay, that makes sense. So let's say we put, I don't know, 4 counters on it. Then this would cost 3 to activate, and then you discard your hand, draw 4. I feel like this, first looking at it, I'm not that excited about it. But I have a feeling this card's better than I think it is. Now, it is only a wizard, so it doesn't necessarily fit into a ton of builds, and anything that's wanted to play wizards has not been great lately. So, meh. But the upside of possibly getting to draw 4 cards is actually pretty good. So, tough one. I'm not going to give this high marks, but I'm also not going to be surprised if it's better than I think it is. The Monumental Facade. It's a land that's a sphere. I don't know what spheres are. I'm sure that'll come up on a card later. It enters the battlefield with 2 oil counters on it. You can tap it for colorless, or you can remove all oil counters from the facade to put an oil counter on target artifact or creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. So there's probably going to be other things that want oil counters, and this is just kind of like a way to facilitate oil counters onto something else. So not too bad. It's just a filler piece for a deck type built around the oil counters. Azuri, Stalker of Fears, 2 colorless, red, blue, 3/3, Phyrexian Elf Warrior. When Azuri, Stalker of Fears enter the battlefield, you may pay 3. So you'd have to have 7 available, 4 for the cost and 3 for the ability. If you do, you proliferate twice, though, which is pretty cool. And whenever you proliferate, you draw a card. So you would pay 7 to get to draw 2 cards because you proliferate twice. If you had counters on anything, you would get to up them all twice. So that's pretty strong. It is only a 3/3 body for 4, so it's not outstanding. And it is 2 colors. I think this is fine and borders on maybe playable if you need the proliferate ability, right? If you have a thing that's based around counters, or maybe you are doing toxic or whatever and you just want to splash blue, or maybe there's good blue things that have toxic. I don't know. But in those scenarios, maybe. But that is a lot of mana to get to spend for potentially doing something powerful. So we'll see. I'm not sold on this one, unfortunately. Venser, Corpse Puppets. A blue and a black for a 1/3 Phyrexian Zombie Wizard. Lifelink, that's cool, though it's only 1 power. Toxic 1, and whenever you proliferate, choose 1. If you don't control a creature named the Hollow Sentinel, create the Hollow Sentinel, a legendary 3/3 token. That's an artifact creature. Or you can choose to target artifact creature you control, gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. So if you're already doing proliferate stuff, this is pretty cool because it lets you create a token. If you don't have one, then you get to give something flying and lifelink, and that's pretty cool. You know, I almost wish this was a zombie wizard. Oh, it is a zombie wizard. Okay. Well, maybe then? I'm trying to think like what this does for zombie decks. And right now we don't have a reason for the zombie decks to proliferate. So you'd just be a 1/3 toxic lifelink thing. So maybe that's not enough. But like, This is another one that I don't think I can think of an immediate use for it. Maybe we need to see more of the set. Right now, I'm not giving it high marks, but let's see what the rest of the preview season brings. Black Sun's Twilight. X and a black. Instant. Up to one target creature gets -X till end of turn. If X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This is cool as a Reanimator thing, right? If you're already playing a Reanimator type deck, you spend whatever amount, you get a creature back, and you get to kill something for the same cost that you wouldn't otherwise probably just reanimate something. A lot of Reanimator spells cost 4 or 5, so you're looking at getting a 3 or 4 power creature back, right? Or mana value. So, still not bad, though. I'm kind of into it. Killing something and getting something back is pretty sweet. This is a lot of rares and mythics on opening day, and I'm wondering if some of this is because of the spoiled cards that happened, that they just rolled out more than they planned to. But we have Blade of Shared Souls, 2 colorless and a blue for an equipment. For Meriden, which makes the 2/2 thing, it just says Rebel Creature Token. It doesn't even say a color, actually. I just realized. Oh, it does say Red Rebel. Never mind. Whenever Blade of Shared Souls becomes attached to a creature for as long as Blade of Shared Souls remains attached to the creature. If you have that creature become... Oh, you may have that creature become a copy of another target creature you control. Wow, that's weird. Okay, so you're going to pay 3. You'll make it 2/2. And then this becomes attached to it. And as long as this is attached to it, you can have that card be a copy of another creature you control. So this is weird and different, but kind of cool. I don't know what to think of it. And it's only equipped too. Honestly, this is a very reasonable equip cost if you want to keep copying something else that you have. Now, admittedly, unless it's something that has an attack trigger or when it goes through a graveyard or something like that, you're not going to really get anything for it. So the deck would have to be built to supplement this card, but it's actually kind of cool. The downside, though, is that's kind of all that it's giving you, right? If you don't have something else to copy, this equipment really doesn't do anything. It just made you a 2/2, and that's kind of it. So you do need to have enough cards to make it worth copying, because it's not even giving you an attack bonus, defense bonus, no flying, nothing like that. Norn's Wellspring, a colorless and a white artifact. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and put an oil counter on Norn's Wellspring. You remove 2 oil counters from Norn's Wellspring and draw a card. This one's kind of cool in a sense that it's a little better awkwardly. Like, it might fill the same spots that we were trying to play Halo Fountain in, right? And because basically every time a token dies, you put a thing. You get to scry anyway for free. And then every couple of turns, maybe you get to draw a card. And it's not nearly as much work as trying to get the Halo Fountain to work. And this only costs 2, where I think Halo Fountain was 3. So, yeah. This is probably a playable card that's pretty decent, honestly. Geth, Thane of Contracts. Black, colorless for a 3/4. Phyrexian Zombie. Other creatures you control get -1/-1. Interesting. A colorless, black, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield to games. If this creature would leave the battlefield, exile it instead of putting it anywhere else. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a very peculiar card, right? Because it's a 3-mana 3/4, which is fine. But your other creatures get weaker. They all get -1/-1. However, this is one of the cheapest reanimating effects, actually. So you pay the same 3 mana, tap it, and you return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then if it dies, it's exiled. So I don't know what to make of this. Like, it's cool you get a creature back, but unless it's a really big creature, then you're not necessarily going to gain anything because you'd be getting a much smaller creature back. But I guess if there's ETBs, that's cool. I will say, though, if you have a way to cycle your hand, discard some cards, get stuff in the yard, maybe you do put a big creature down, and then this gets it out on turn 4 or 5 or something. So, yeah, this could be a very interesting part to some quirky reanimation style decks. Mercurial Dancer, a colorless and a blue for Phyrexian Rogue. 2/1. It can't be blocked, which I know people love that. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put an oil counter on it. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may remove 2 oil counters from it. If you do, when you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You can choose new targets. Ooh, so a 2-mana 2/1 that can't be blocked. And then every time you cast a spell or non-creature spell, you can put something on this. And then you can remove those somethings to copy the next spell. Man, that's tough. It's tough because this card doesn't really do anything until you've already played a bunch of other stuff. But I guess if you build a deck with a bunch of different spells that you want to do, this could be pretty cool. Or, again, if you're already playing a deck that cares about oil counters, which we've seen multiple cards that can give oil counters to things and stuff like that. So, yeah. Plus, you can proliferate up on some oil counters. But, this card, this is weird. I feel like it has tons of potential, but I don't know what the deck looks like that utilizes that potential. I think that's where I'm stuck at on this one. Though this image is bad, I'm going to go with it because clicking around just a second ago, I saw that they've already shown some borderless versions of this card, so I'm going to assume it's a legit card. They just had a bad image here. But Ovika Enigma Goliath, 5 colorless, blue-red, 6/6, Nightmare Phyrexian. It does have flying. It has Ward 3 and Pay 3 life. My goodness. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create X/1/1 red Phyrexian Goblin creature tokens, where X is the mana value of that spell. These creatures gain haste. If you have a way to trick this into play, whether that's ramping it, getting out of the graveyard, whatever, this is pretty strong because it is damn hard to kill when you're talking about a Ward 3 plus Pay 3 life. Like, that's such a huge investment to get rid of a card like this. But the minute you start playing spells, you start piling up the bodies real quick. So yeah, this isn't a great card, but boy, is this a fun card. Like, this, if you can put this in the right build or the right commander deck, this can end up being piles of tokens. Urabrass Forge, 2 colorless and a red. Artifact, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put an oil counter on the forge, then create an X1 red Phyrexian horror creature token with trample and haste, where X is the number of oil counters on Urabrass Forge. Sacrifice token at the beginning of the next end step. Alright, so beginning of combat, you put an oil counter on. Then you make an X1. X power equal to the number of oil counters on here. And it has haste and it has trample. And let's see and that's it. And you just sacrifice it at the end of turn. So this is just going to make a body every turn from the time you play it. You're going to get a 1/1, then a 2/1, then a 3/1, then a 4/1, then a 5/1. And that's if you're doing nothing to proliferate or add oil tokens to this. So, this seems all right to me. Again, I don't know if it has a particular build, but if you have something that cares about ETB triggers or something that's doing something with tramplers or whatever, this could be pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this card. It's a very quirky one. I don't know if it finds a home in any like truly competitive decks, but there could probably be some fun stuff on the ladder you can do with this. Kimba, Kha Enduring. Colorless and a white for a 2/2 cat cleric. Whenever Kimba, Kha Enduring, or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. Equipped creatures you control get +1/+1. You can pay 5, 3 white, create a 2/2 white cat creature token. I don't mind this card for a couple of reasons. One, it is a 2/2 for 2, which is nice. It's also a cleric, in case that matters. It's a cat, in case that matters. It gives all your other equipped things +1/+1. We've seen they're going a different way with equipment, so equipment could have some value in this set. And it would only take like a couple of equipment cards to make this viable. And then by itself, if your opponent doesn't remove it, it's just make extra bodies every turn, which is cool. But all that being said, I like the cool things we could do with this. It feels like it's probably more of a commander thing. Sadly, it only pumps cats. Well, I mean, it makes cats, pumps anything with equipment. I mean, when cats enter the battlefield, they can equip, so that's kind of cool too. Yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting card. I just don't think it's going to make it in standard or maybe any of the 60 card formats. Skrelv's Hive. Is Skrell like a weird, I was going to say like Phyrexian dog thing, but it looks like it's on top of a person's head, like digging in their brain. Because I don't know if that's an ear on the lower left or not. I don't know what's going on with this image. Phyrexia is weird. Things aren't built normal. I was about to say people. This is a colorless and a white enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, but this creature can't block. And as long as you control As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters on them, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. So this costs you life to get a free token every turn. They can't block, but every time they connect, you're going to get to put a poison counter on the opponent. If at any point the opponent has 3 or more poison on them, now every token you make actually has lifelink, which makes it extend the longevity of this enchantment, right? So yeah, I'm into this. Again, if I'm playing a token deck already and I have things that pump those creatures, like I'm kind of into it. Phyrexian Arena, colorless black. This is a reprint, by the way. Enchantment, at the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose a life. This card's just going to get played. I mean, it's been good, still good. Versions of this were going for a lot of money that needed to be reprinted. It's just a free card every turn. I mean, you lose a life, but there's so many things where you can gain life. You can play Shieldred, you can play Corrupts, there's so many things that Black has right now to make this not matter. So, yeah, sweet card. Definitely will see some play. Right, this looks cool. Conduit of Worlds. 2 colorless, green, artifact. You may play lands from your graveyard. I feel like we have a few cards that do that right now, and we're not using them. Tap, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast additional spells this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. Okay, this is cool. So you can play lands anyway from the graveyard. So if anything goes to the yard, you can put it into play. But now you can just choose a card in your graveyard, and if you haven't played a spell yet, you can just play that. Now, this actually seems pretty cool. When we've played different versions of things like Slowkirk and Titania and things like that, right? This would be the perfect card for that type of build, because now you can always have Argoth in play, right? Because you can always play out of the graveyard. You can replay Titania if she's died. You can reuse a Slowkirk if it died early before you had a chance to put land triggers on it or whatever. Like, this is kind of a cool card. This is another card that I actually could see being played in Commander even, right? They get rid of your problematic card and you're like, nope, I'm going to do it again. You know, or your removal that you're limited on, or board sweeper or whatever. Yeah, this is a cool card. And 4 mana isn't very much. I'm kind of into this. White Sun's Twilight. X white sorcery. You gain X life. Create X/1/1 Phyrexian Might artifact creature tokens with Toxic, and they can't block, so just like the enchantment. If X is 5 or more, you destroy all other creatures. So you make X/1/1s and you gain X life. So if you spend 4, you make 4 tokens, gain 4 life. If it's 5 or more, then you get to make 5 1/1s, but then you destroy... If this creature... Okay. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. Oh, so not the creatures you make, just the other creatures. So you still get your 1/1s, and then you destroy everything else. Yeah, this is pretty strong too. I could see control decks splashing like one of these. Like if for some reason you just happen to want a late game finisher and another way to try to win, right? You sweep the board and you leave 6 or 8 1/1s that are going to have Toxic. Yeah, control decks are actually just going to win with this card at times, which is crazy, but neat. Venerated Rotpriest. 1 green, 1/2, Phyrexian Druid. It has Toxic 1. Whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. Wow, that's kind of cool. So you get a 1/2 for 1, which is fine, not great. But you get a 1/2 for 1, and then if your opponent targets any of your stuff to kill it, then they get poison counters. And this also has the ability to put poison. Like, this is an interesting thing because you could create a scenario where your opponent gets up to, say, 6 or 7 poison and then just doesn't want to attack you because they need their blockers for everything. So, yeah. I don't know how good this is. It's a 1/2, so it's not like that exciting to toss into a deck. But if I'm already playing Toxic stuff, this is going to be really strong if that's a real deck. The Seed Core, which looks kind of wild. It's also a sphere like the other land was. Tap for a colorless, or you can tap and add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast Phyrexian creature spells. And Corrupted is tap. Target 1/1 creature gets +2/+1 till end of turn. Activate only if the opponent has 3 or more poison counters. So Corrupted is always so far whenever your opponent has 3 or more poison counters, which makes sense because then they're kind of corrupted because toxicity or whatever. Make 1/1s in the 3/2s. Fair enough. Is this worth it? Maybe if you're like, the problem is the colored mana can only be used for Phyrexian creature spells, not even other things that make Phyrexians or have to do with Phyrexians. So we kind of have to see if that's an actual deck of Phyrexian stuff. If so, this card's great. If not, it's probably worth a pass. Skrelv, Defector Might. It's a 1 for a 1/1. Oh, this is the thing from Skrelv's Hive, or whatever that we just saw, the other white enchantment. Legendary artifact creature, Phyrexian Might. Oh, so it was probably on somebody's head. It's a Might. So this is like a micro size Phyrexian. That's crazy. Like, Phyrexians can... Is this like infected? Is this like Phyrexian lice? Like, this is another level of Phyrexian I hadn't thought about. Like, this is wild. Okay. It has Toxic 1. It's a 1/1. Skrelv Defector Might can't block, so it's just like the other Might tokens that the game makes. You can pay 1 white Phyrexian mana. Choose a color. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that color until end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that color this turn. All right, so this is an interesting card, right? We can make something nigh unblockable. We can make something protection from spells effectively, try to target it, right? You give it hexproof. You don't even need mana open, you just need this untapped. But it's a neat balance because this can't block, right? So you want to attack and try to do toxic damage. But it's only a 1/1, so a lot of times you're not going to be able to push it through. So I kind of like the fact that it does have another ability, because there are going to be sometimes the card's kind of useless, right? I can't block with it, but you're going to obviously block and kill it if I attack with it. So at least I can do something else with it while it sits there untapped. And the best part is, your better creature probably gets left alone because they have to deal with this first to be able to kill it with a lot of things. So yeah, this card's actually kind of neat. Weirdly creepy now that I've thought about Phyrexian lice being a thing, but neat. All right, I think Kha is the last one for the day. Kha Intangible Slayer, 3 colorless, white, black, black. So 7 ungodly mana. That is so much. For 6 loyalty, though, so it starts with a lot. Has hexproof, so you can't just remove it with the spot removal spell. So I guess, so far, I'm not sure it's worth 7, but a good start. We get to +2, so you're going to be up to 8 loyalty. Each opponent loses 3 life and you gain 3. Okay, that's pretty cool. Maybe even good in Commander, where you can actually get to 7. 0, you can draw 2 cards. Then each opponent may scry 1. Fair. -3, exile target creature or enchantment. If it wasn't an aura, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying, in addition to its other types. So that's actually pretty cool. So you kill an enchantment or a creature, as long as it wasn't an aura, that is an enchantment attached to a thing generally. You make a 1/1 spirit that has all the traits of that other thing. So you can have a 1/1 spirit enchantment that does whatever the enchantment did. Even crazier is if you remove, check this out, like you remove an enchantment that had something exiled, and then you make a 1/1 that comes into play and exiles a thing. It's kind of crazy. Like, this card's kind of wild. Like, the things that you could potentially do with this are pretty crazy. Now, admittedly, 7 mana. That's not easy to hit a lot of times. So you're probably not playing more than one of these in your deck if you are playing it. But man, this probably does some really cool game state things if you do stick it. Now, having looked at all those cards today, I don't know what this means for the set or the preview season, because we saw quite a few rares and mythics that it felt like a higher number than normal, but again, there were some leaks a couple weeks ago, and maybe they're making up for some of that. We did learn some things, though, as though there's mites, there's a ton of planeswalkers, a lot of crazy, cool cards, some that seem undercosted, there's a lot of toxic being a thing. So as we get some previews this season, we're going to have to do wrap-ups where we talk about, like, hey, some cards we saw before that link with ones that we saw in the previous video. Like, these things are kind of going to come together. So yeah, this is going to be interesting doing wrap-ups every day while we get this going, because I think this is a pretty short preview season as well, so we should see all the stuff within like 7 to 10 days. So yeah, y'all know the drill. Hit that like button, subscribe, all the good stuff so you don't miss the previews, because there's going to be a lot to talk about. But if you want to check out our pre-previews and see all the other stuff we talked about before things went live, here's the video.